You know, one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to learn English is that they treat it like a subject they have to pass. Like math or history, they sit in class, memorize vocabulary lists, cram grammar rules, and wait for exams just to prove they've learned something. But let me tell you something. That's not how you get good at English. That's not how you learn fast. If your only goal is to pass a test, you'll forget everything after that test. You need to stop seeing English as an exam subject and start seeing it as your ticket to the world. Look around. The global language of opportunity, of business, of technology, of learning is English. You're not learning it just to impress your teacher. You're learning it so you can talk to people from other countries. So you can watch a TED Talk and understand the ideas that could change your future. So you can sit in an interview and confidently express who you are, what you can do, and what problems you can solve. That's the real reason. Let me ask you something. If you had the chance to speak to someone who could invest in your idea or offer you a job or teach you something valuable, but they only speak English, will the grammar rule you memorized matter in that moment? No. What matters is, can you connect? Can you communicate? That's the purpose of English. It's not about being perfect. It's about being understood. That's the mindset that changes everything. Think of the most successful people you've seen speaking English. Most of them don't have perfect accents. They still make small grammar mistakes, but they can express their ideas. They can make people feel something. That's what English is for. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's not the destination. It's a bridge to something bigger. And if you treat it like that, you'll not only learn faster, you'll enjoy learning it. Too many people say, I'll speak when I'm confident. No. You become confident by speaking. In business, you don't wait for a perfect product. You launch. You improve. You grow. It's the same with English. Every of my. If you're always afraid of being wrong, you'll stay stuck forever. But when you stop chasing perfection and start focusing on connection, things change. You speak more. You listen more. You take risks, and every risk builds your fluency. People who learn English fast are not always the smartest. They are the ones who are curious. They are the ones who care about understanding people and being understood. They're not trying to they're not trying to win a spelling bee. They're trying to open doors. That's the real goal. If you make that your goal, you'll stop caring about how you sound and start focusing on what you're saying. So please, don't trap yourself in the exam mindset. Because if you treat English like just another test, it will stay inside the classroom forever. But if you treat it like your passport to the world, you'll start to use it, feel it, and live it. That's when the real learning begins. Speak English not just to pass, but to connect. Learning English fast isn't about doing everything at once. It's just like starting a business. You don't build an empire in a day. You begin with something small, something simple, and you keep going. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. People often get excited and study English for 6 hours in one day and then stop for the next 10 days. That's not how you grow. It's like going to the gym once a month and expecting to become fit. Real progress happens when you show up every single day, even for just 10 or 15 minutes. If you look at successful entrepreneurs, they don't start with millions. They start with ideas, a little bit of action, and daily effort. That's exactly how English works. You don't need fancy apps, expensive tutors, or long textbooks. You need a simple routine that fits your life. Maybe it's Favre of My. Maybe it's watching 5 minutes of a video in English during lunch. Maybe it's Rai of My. Maybe it's writing one short sentence about your day before you sleep. Maybe it's reading just one news article in English every morning. These small actions may look too small to matter, but they build a habit, and that habit becomes a skill. The reasoning many people don't better at English is because they want instant results. They try to memorize 500 words in one night. They want to understand everything in 1 week. But language doesn't work like that. It grows like a seed, and you have to water it daily, slowly, silently, patiently. Some days it feels like nothing is happening. But if you keep going, one day you'll suddenly realize you're speaking better, understanding faster, and thinking in English to American English without even trying. That moment doesn't come from one big step. It comes from many small, invisible ones. Also, when you start small, you remove fear. You don't feel pressure. You don't feel like you're failing. You feel comfortable. And when you feel comfortable, your brain relaxes. And learning becomes natural. Too many people quit English because they expect too much too soon. They compare themselves to others and think they're behind. But everyone has their own journey. The only competition you have is the person you were yesterday. If you can speak one more word than yesterday, that's progress. If you can understand one more sentence than last week, you're growing. Imagine this. Someone learns one new English word every day, just one. In a year, that's 365 new words. In 2 years, over 700, and not just memorized, but truly used, understood, remembered. That's the power of consistency. That's the secret behind fast learners. They're not fast because they rush. They're fast because they don't stop. So instead of setting huge goals like, I want to be fluent in 3 months, start with, I will spend 10 minutes every day with English. That goal is realistic. That goal is doable. And most importantly, that goal is sustainable. And anything sustainable becomes powerful. When you're building a business, every small step counts. A single email, a single sale, a single customer. In language, it's the same. One sentence, one video, one new word. If you keep showing up, results will come. Not overnight, but always on time. So don't try to be perfect today. Just try to be consistent tomorrow. One of the fastest ways to learn English is to stop thinking so much and just start using it. People spend months and even years studying grammar, memorizing vocabulary, and reading textbooks. But when it comes time to speak, they freeze. Why? Because they're afraid of making mistakes. But that fear is what's really slowing them down. The truth is, the people who learn English quickly are the ones who listen a lot and aren't afraid to speak, even when they make errors. It's not about speaking perfectly. It's about speaking often. Think about how you learned your native language. You didn't start with a grammar book. You listened, you watched, you copied, you made mistakes, and somehow slowly you got better. You didn't worry if your sentence was correct. You just spoke. And that's the secret. Listening gives you the input you need, and speaking even broken speaking, is how you train your brain to use what you've heard. You can study all the rules in the world, but if you don't use them, they won't stick. Action is what makes language real. When you listen more, real conversations, native speakers, podcasts, movies, even simple YouTube videos, you begin to understand not just words, but how those words are used. You start to feel the rhythm of the language, the tone, the emotion. You begin to pick up on common patterns and everyday phrases. This is how you build your ear for English. And once you've heard something enough times, it becomes easier to repeat. Your brain begins to recognize what sounds right without you needing to analyze every word. That's how fluency starts. But listening alone isn't enough. You must speak, even if it's just to yourself. Say what you hear, repeat phrases, answer the video out loud, describe what you're doing in English while you do it. It might feel silly at first, but it's powerful. Speaking is the muscle you must train. You can't just read about swimming. You have to jump in the water. You have to open your mouth and say the words. And yes, you will make mistakes. You'll pronounce something wrong. You'll pronounce something wrong. You'll forget a word. You might even feel embarrassed. But that's okay. That's how you grow. In fact, making mistakes is not something to avoid. It's something to use. Because every mistake teaches you something. Every time you mess up, your brain adjusts. It remembers. It improves. Mistakes are not the end. They are the beginning of learning. People who avoid mistakes avoid progress. But people who embrace mistakes accelerate faster than anyone else. You cannot learn to ride a bicycle without falling. And you cannot learn to speak English without stumbling a little. The goal is not to sound like a native speaker on day one. The goal is to start to speak with what you know, to build confidence. And confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from using what you know and discovering that you can survive, that people understand you, that it's okay to be imperfect. In fact, most people will admire your effort more than your accuracy. So don't wait for the perfect sentence to come to your mind. Speak with the broken one. Speak with the simple one. Speak with whatever you have right now. Because the more you speak, the better you'll get. And the better you'll get, the more you'll speak. It's a cycle, a powerful one. Don't fear the mistake, fear the silence. The fastest learners of English are not the ones who spend hours memorizing grammar rules or who try to sound academic from day one. They're the ones who treat English like any other language, like something to live with, not something to study from a distance. Think about it. When you were a child, did anyone give you a grammar book to learn your mother tongue? No. You listened, you watched, you repeated. You didn't worry about being correct. You just copied. You played with words, and over time, you became fluent. That same natural method is still the most effective way to learn English today. The problem is most people approach English like a school subject, not like a language. They want to understand all the grammar before they start speaking. They want to memorize long vocabulary lists before they try a sentence. But language doesn't work like that. It's not a formula. It's a feeling. You have to hear it, feel it, and use it in real life situations. That's how fluency is built. Not in the head, but in the habit. Start listening like a child does. Watch how people speak. Don't worry about understanding every word. Just get the rhythm. Get the tone. Let the sound of English become familiar to your ears. That's what children do. They don't translate. They don't overthink. They absorb. And that's what you need to do. Change your phone settings to English. Watch short clips in English. Listen to songs. Don't pause every second to translate. Let it flow. Let it sink in naturally. Over time, you'll start picking up patterns, expressions, and phrases without even trying to memorize them. And then, just like children do, start copying. Repeat what you hear. Say it out loud. Don't be afraid to mimic the way someone speaks. That's not imitation. It's training. Athletes do it. Musicians do it. And language learners should too. When a child hears, "How are you?" 100 times, they don't ask, "Is that present tense or past?" They just say it. You can do the same. Find common phrases and start using them. Don't aim for originality. Aim for fluency. Because once you're fluent, originality will come naturally. The best part is when you learn naturally, learning becomes enjoyable. You don't feel like you're working. You feel like You're experiencing the language. You feel connected. You laugh at the jokes in the videos. You sing along to the music. You start thinking in English without trying. And that's when your learning speed increases. Because now it's not just something you study. It becomes a part of your daily life. Some people say, "But I'm not a child anymore." That's true, but your brain still works the same way. You can still absorb. You can still mimic. You can still play with language. The only difference is that as adults, we're more afraid of mistakes. We want to be correct. But that fear is what slows us down. Children don't worry about correctness. They just use what they hear. They enjoy the process. They stay curious. If you can bring even a little bit of that mindset into your English learning, you'll go much further, much faster. So instead of treating English like a school subject, treat it like your first language. Use it without fear. Hear it without pressure. Speak it without delay. Because when you learn naturally, you learn deeply. And that kind of learning stays with you for life. Fluency begins the my moment you stop learning English like a system and start living it like a language. If you really want to learn English fast, then stop treating it like a subject and start treating it the way you learned your first language. Think about how you learned to speak as a child. Nobody gave you a dictionary. Nobody explained sentence structure to you. You didn't sit down with a grammar textbook. When you were 2 years old, you learned by listening, by watching, and by repeating. You were surrounded by the language, and slowly, naturally, it became a part of you. That's the most effective way to learn any language. Even now, the mistake most people make is they try to understand every single rule before they open their mouth. They wait for the perfect sentence to come into their head before they speak. But that's not how language works. Language is about feeling, rhythm, flow. You learn the music of the language before you understand the lyrics. When a child hears people around them say, "What's your name?" again and again, they don't need to know what or your means. They just repeat it. They copy the sound. And slowly, they connect the meaning with the words. That's how you learned your first language. That's how you can learn English too. Start by listening. Surround yourself with the sound of English. Listen to music. Watch movies. Follow English speaking creators online. Listen to podcasts while you commute. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Don't pause and check every word, and just let the language flow of my. Just let the language flow over you. Your brain is smarter than you think. It will start picking up patterns. It will start recognizing common words and phrases. Just like a child, you'll begin to understand the meaning through repetition. Tone and context, even without a translation. Then start speaking. Repeat what you hear. Say the words out loud, even if you don't fully understand them yet. Use them. Play with them. Try to sound like the people you listen to. This is not copying. This is how humans learn. You don't become fluent by reading about the language. You become fluent by hearing it and using it. Think about how many people study English for years and still can't speak comfortably. And then someone who watches English movies and talks with friends every day becomes fluent in a year. The difference isn't in intelligence, it's in method. Grammar still matters, but it's not where you start. A child doesn't know what past perfect is, but they can say, I ate, without thinking. That's because they've heard it 1,000 times. Later, they learn the rules behind it. That's the natural order. First input, then output, then understanding. Most people reverse it and wonder why they're stuck. Focus on using the language, not just understanding it in theory. The understanding will come. Also, don't overcorrect yourself every time you make a mistake. Mistakes are part of the process. They are signs that you're using the language. Children make hundreds of mistakes a day, and they're still the fastest learners. Why? Because they don't stop to judge themselves. They don't worry about being wrong. They just keep going. If you can bring even a little bit of that fearless energy into your learning, you'll move so much faster. The people who succeed in learning English are not necessarily the ones with the best memory or the highest education. They're the ones who immerse themselves. They live with the language. They let it become a part of their daily habits. They don't try to control every step. They just trust the process. And they keep showing up. When you stop trying to learn English like a formula and start letting it become something you feel, use, and live with, you'll be shocked how quickly it starts to feel like your own. One thing that makes a huge difference in how fast someone learns English is their reason for learning it. A lot of people want to speak English so they can sound smart, impress others, or show off on social media. But that mindset doesn't lead to real growth. It creates pressure. It makes people focus more on appearances than on true connection. And that's where they get stuck. Because language isn't meant to be a performance. It's meant to be a tool, a way to help, to communicate, to solve problems. If you shift your mindset from how do I sound to how can I help, your entire approach changes. Think about the most powerful conversations you've ever had. They weren't about perfect pronunciation or complicated vocabulary. They were about connection, honesty, understanding. That's the heart of language. If you treat English as a way to connect, to serve others, to share ideas, your fluency will grow much faster. Why? Because now your motivation is real. Now you're not learning to impress. You're learning to express. If you're speaking English to if you're speaking English just to prove something to others, you'll always worry about being judged. You'll hesitate. You'll overthink every word. And the more pressure you feel, the less you'll speak. But if your goal is to help someone, maybe explain something clearly, answer a question, guide someone, or make them feel understood, then even simple words are powerful. Even basic sentences become meaningful. And that's where real confidence comes from. Not from sounding perfect, but from knowing your words made a difference. This is the same reason many people who work in customer service, hospitality, or tourism often speak better English than students who've studied it for years. They use it to help people. Every day, they repeat simple phrases. They listen, they answer, they serve. And in doing so, they become fluent naturally, without chasing perfection. Because when your focus is on the person in front of you, not yourself, you forget your fear. And that's when learning speeds up. The moment you make English about service instead of status, you stop chasing big, fancy words and start using the language that actually works. You become clearer. You become more natural. You become more human. That's what real communication is about. People remember how you make them feel, not how advanced your vocabulary is. So speak with that mindset. Use English to make someone's day easier. To teach, to explain, to support. That's where confidence begins. And the truth is, people don't care if your English isn't perfect. What they care about is whether you're genuine, whether they can understand you, and whether you're trying. If they see that you're making an effort to connect, they will respect you more, not less. We often worry that others will laugh at our mistakes, but more often, they admire our courage to try, especially when we use the language to make their life better in some way. So instead of asking, how can I sound smarter in English? Ask, how can I make someone understand me better? Instead of asking, what big word can I use here? Ask, what simple word will make this clearer? The goal is not to impress, it's to express. And when you speak with that purpose, you become a better communicator, not just a better speaker. Fluency doesn't grow from showing off. It grows from showing up to serve. If you want to learn English fast, you have to put yourself in situations where you're forced to use it, not just read it, not just study it, but actually use it. Think about anything you've learned in life. Driving, swimming, even solving problems at work. You didn't really master it by reading instructions. You learned by doing it, by being in the middle of it, with no choice but to figure it out. That kind of pressure is uncomfortable, but it's also powerful. It pushes you to grow in ways that sitting in a classroom never will. When you're surrounded by English, something changes. Your brain wakes up. It starts connecting things faster. You don't have time to translate in your head. You start thinking in the language. And that's a big shift. Because now, English isn't just something you study. It becomes something you live. You're not just learning rules. You're solving real problems with the language. And that's when learning becomes real and fast. This doesn't mean you have to travel to another country or live abroad. That's not possible for everyone. But what you can do is create your own English environment. Change your phone, your apps, your daily routine. Make English part of your life. Talk to people online. Join English speaking communities, groups, or discussion forums. Watch content with the goal of understanding. Then use what you've learned in conversations. Comment on videos. Ask questions in English. Share your thoughts, even if they're simple. It's not about being advanced. It's about being active. The more you put yourself in these situations, the more confident you'll become. At first, you'll struggle. You'll search for words, mix up sentences, maybe even feel a little embarrassed. But that's part of the process. Just like in business, the first time you speak with a customer, it's awkward. The 10th time, it gets smoother. The 100th time, it feels natural. It's the same with English. The more you use it, the less you fear it. Sometimes the fear of making mistakes holds people back. But here's the truth. Mistakes are not a problem. Silence is. Mistakes are how we grow. But if you stay quiet, if you avoid situations where you have to speak, then your growth stops. And you might spend years studying English and still not feel comfortable using it. But if you step into that discomfort, if you start using English even when you're not sure, you'll get better, faster than you think. One of the best ways to speed up your learning is to put yourself in what I call necessary moments. These are moments where you have no option but to communicate. Maybe it's a video call with someone who doesn't speak your language. Maybe it's helping someone who asks you a question in English. Maybe just ordering food at an English speaking counter, joining an online study group, or doing a live session. These moments force you to try. They force you to think in the moment. And they teach you faster, Vine. They teach you faster than any textbook ever will. When something becomes necessary, your brain adapts. You stop worrying about being perfect. You start focusing on being understood. And in that pressure, in that urgency, real learning happens. You discover new words because you need them. You remember phrases because you just used them. You build confidence because you realize you survived the moment. And that gives you the courage to keep going. So if you truly want to learn English quickly, stop waiting for the right moment. Create it. Create it. Put yourself in situations that demand the language. Make it part of your life, not just part of your schedule. The more you need English, the faster you'll master it.